The government is shutting down, folks. Millions of people will experience financial hardship. Many might even lose their jobs. So you know what that means. It's time for the president of the United States to get on social media and post some racist AI slop, because boomers gotta boom, I guess. Look, and don't get me wrong, okay? I love making fun of Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and Chuck Schumer's imaginary best friends, but you don't gotta get all AI with it, let alone racist. You know, you can just play clips of them talking and then everyone will fall asleep and you can do whatever you want. Speaking of Republicans doing whatever they want, here is Fox News host Jessica Tarlov going at it with Brett Baier about one of the Republicans' favorite pastimes lately, which is called lying.
Mike Johnson and JD Vance
until the end of the year. So you fund the government.
Enough
and
with
then you
this.
and then you
but
and then you argue the point.
Who's to say that they're going to sit down and negotiate with us afterwards? They came out of that meeting. Trump is posting racist AI videos saying I don't need to deal with them at all. Mike Johnson, JD Vance are lying about what Democrats are asking, saying we want to fund health care for illegals, which is impossible and doesn't happen. It is impossible. They're saying they want to cut $50 billion from rural hospitals. They took $137 billion out and then gave us back $50 billion and said that it's our problem.
Something to keep in mind for the remainder of this video is that undocumented immigrants actually subsidize healthcare costs for U.S. citizens. I think that's really interesting. You know, like I love learning new things and then reorienting my position in a way that reflects the best available data. In fact, I think people who don't do that are stupid, or they're like con artists. Wait, who does that remind me of? Stupid and con. What's his name?
You're not eligible for the health care subsidies that Democrats are demanding. So can you clarify, what are you talking about when you say Democrats want to protect their health care?
So when an illegal person comes in, a person who came into our country illegally, therefore breaking the law, and look, we all have big hearts. I have a bigger heart than you do. They're all breaking the law, and they're coming into our country. And we just, as a country, cannot afford to take care of millions of people who have broken the law coming in. We want them to come into our country, but we want them to come in legally. Now we have a strong border, very strong border, thanks to Christie and Tom Homan and the whole group. They've done an amazing job at the border. I mean, we had a border that was reckless. We had a border that was a disaster. They were coming in by the millions. I say 25 million people. You're saying less, but I say 25 million people came in illegally. And no system can take care of the health care of all of those people that came in.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. Okay. I forget about him just because he's so quiet all the time. Didn't he say he was going to release the Epstein files? Whatever happened to that? Did he not release the Epstein files because he's like a pervert? That'd be crazy. But whether he is just stupid or a con man or just racist or a pervert is really for the Lord to decide. Oh, was you? Oh, okay. God just said yes. That's all he said. Yeah, he said it again. Yeah, so you can take that, I guess, with a grain of salt. But he's kind of an authority on the matter. I think I like praying. I'm kind of like Mike Johnson that way. Where I'm not like Mike Johnson is I try not to lie all the time. So here's a clip of Mike Johnson lying.
So we just did a simple, clean resolution, give us till November 21 to finish the process. Chuck Schumer is stopping it for raw political purposes. People see through that. And imagine what it is he's arguing. He wants to give free health care to illegal aliens.
But he says that's not true. Democrats say it's expanding Medicaid, getting dollars back from Medicaid, and it leaves some room for unauthorized immigrants. I call them undocumented Democrats, but they're unauthorized immigrants in some cases. And there's discretion to use the monies toward individuals who are not here lawfully.
Wrong. Read his own legislation. He filed a CR as a counterproposal, and it has all the details in it. What they're trying to do is roll back the reforms, the very important, necessary reforms that we included in the big, beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut. It's had the desired effect. The CBO, which is, the neutral arbiter, supposedly, that the Democrats cite all the time, came out 3 weeks ago and said it worked. It's reducing premiums. Why? Because we got able-bodied young men off of Medicaid. They should have never been there in the first place. And we got illegal aliens off as well. Millions of people removed from the rolls, which makes health care more affordable for everybody. They want to roll that back. Why? Because they want illegal aliens to be voters for their side.
Okay, right. But again, and let's all say it together, undocumented immigrants actually subsidize healthcare for U.S. citizens. And also, just to be very clear here, Democrats are not trying to get undocumented immigrants documented so they can have votes for the Democratic Party, okay? They are way too busy courting centrist Republicans and ostracizing anybody to the left of them to the detriment of both themselves and the nation in their bloodthirsty pursuit of power. But we don't need to get into all that. You know, I'm starting to think that with all of this lying going around, that maybe this isn't even really about what's best for the American people. It's almost like it's more of a political game, except with dire consequences for government workers as well as businesses that work with the government, you know? But fortunately, our leaders are incredibly rational and well adjusted. You know, so they would never use an opportunity like this to cause unnecessary harm. I mean, for that to happen, you'd have to have someone in charge who was some sort of like a pervert, con artist, stupid fascist or something. You know, that fortunately, that's not. Here's a clip.
The state of the Democrat Party when they have a 33% favorability rating on average in recent months, and they're willing to shut down the government over health care.
They are shutting it down. We're not shutting it down. We don't want it to shut down because we have the greatest period of time ever. I told you, we have $17 trillion being invested, so the last person that wants it shut down is us. Now, with that being said, we can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, that are bad for them and irreversible by them, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting things that they like, cutting programs that they like. And you all know Russell Vought. He's become very popular recently because he can trim the budget to a level that you couldn't do any other way. So they're taking a risk by having a shutdown because of the shutdown, we can do things medically and other ways, including benefits. We can cut large numbers of people out. We don't want to do that, but we don't want fraud, waste, and abuse. And, you know, we're cutting that.
Yeah, you know, it just does kind of sounds a little bit like you want to do that. I don't know. It's just, maybe it's because you just listed everything that you guys really enjoy doing. Now, I guess the idea here from Republicans is that Democrats should just give them the votes and then they can just sort of figure everything out later. But I've never read The Art of the Deal. And I know that's embarrassing, but I'm fairly certain that the compromises are supposed to come before the deal is made, right? Like, I'm not like a master negotiator like Trump is, but isn't that normally like the order that it happens? Hence the phrase "done deal," which I also think are two words that should be engraved on Trump's tombstone. Anyway, here is Jessica Tarlov again to break it down for us.
Jessica, that letter from the OMB director is essentially a threat that this shutdown happens. You're going to fire people that the discretionary funding doesn't cover.
And Donald Trump made the same threat when he was speaking earlier today as well. He said we can do a lot of really bad things. We can do things that they don't want us to do. And yes, Democrats don't want people to get fired, and Democrats don't want people to lose their health care. But I think the Republican Party is trying to act like they have the upper hand, and they just don't on the merits. First of all, 45% of Americans would blame them versus 32% that would blame the Democrats. And we saw what happens when you give Republicans the votes. We did that in March, and they have governed by and for themselves. They think they don't have to negotiate when typically on these kinds of things, on CRs, you do that because you don't have the 60 votes to do it.
I hear the polls. I hear what you're saying, but this is kind of simple. You know, this is a plain fund the government.
But it's not. Because
continuing resolution.
But it's a clean resolution inclusive of these cuts. And there are smart Republicans like a Josh Hawley, even Senator Thune has said that he's been concerned about this. When you look at what's going to happen with 114% hikes on these ACA premiums, that affects Democrats just as much as Republicans. And there are a lot of Republicans on Obamacare.
Don't you hate it when you need your voters to like be alive or whatever? Now, obviously, I am skeptical that like diehard Trump supporters would stop supporting him, even if they somehow lost their health care because cult. But some Republicans might, and that's not good when you have midterms coming up and you already only have a slim majority. So this next clip shows two people who've both had their jaws wired shut, and yet somehow they still manage to communicate with each other. And I think that's beautiful.
Speaker Johnson, you have a very, very, very narrow majority.
Mm-hmm.
At a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is it that the Republicans build on this very slim majority next year?
We're going to win the midterms. Absolutely. We're going to have a big victory, and I think we can expand that majority so we can keep going. We have to give President Trump 4 years and not 2. Imagine if the Democrats took over the House, they'd impeach
They're getting
him.
ready for the investigations. They're already ramping it up.
Well, they're already ramping it up. Well, they're already ramping it up. Do you think they have all liquid diets, the two of them? Can you imagine if one of them ate a burger? Their head would explode. But let's not get all caught up in the weeds here, okay? With like the feckless Democrats and the fascist Republicans. And by fascist, I mean fascism, which occurs when leaders openly espouse authoritarian violence in an attempt to construct a social order in response to what scholar of Lacanian psychoanalysis Todd McGowan called the racist fantasy in his book, The Racist Fantasy. But this isn't our leaders' fault, okay? It just isn't, all right? Just like every act of political violence throughout history has always been committed by a trans person, somehow we'll figure it out. All of the economic problems that we face are the fault of undocumented immigrants, who, by the way, contribute about 3% of the private sector GDP, a figure that is estimated to grow 20% were they to be integrated and not snatched out of their homes and sent to Timbuktu. But then who would we have to blame? You know, it's almost like our leaders want them to be undocumented because it allows their voters to fantasize about them while their economy is destroyed and their health care is taken away. But at least when we're all on our deathbeds, we can be super entertained by this AI racist slop posted by arguably the most powerful person on the planet on his own social media network. That's really cool. Oh, my kitchen timer just went off because we are cooked. Anyway, I will see you next week, guys. Thank you so much. I hope nothing happens. I would like a week of nothing happening. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't that be nice? Anyway, I'll see you later. But they're illegal. Let me grow up. You grow up. You 7 years old. What that document? What that doc? Give him the document. Illegal. You little rat. You little rat. Is that not you? You're a good boy. You're a good boy. I'm talking to someone I made up in my head. I'm like Chuck Schumer that way. My car has an expired tag on it. Do you think if I get pulled over, they're going to tow it to Guantanamo? No. They're going to be like, go get a sticker. And I'm going to go get a sticker. That's what you're talking about. Talking about a sticker. Just because you spend decades enacting legislation to make it more and more difficult to get the sticker doesn't mean it's still not just a sticker. At the end of the day, it's a sticker. I know it's not a sticker. It's an analogy.